organized by the Faculty of Social and Political Science, Universitas Airlangga. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Radityo Dharma Putra. I'm currently a lecturer at the Department of International Relations, Universitas Airlangga, and I am also a doctoral student and a junior research fellow at the Johan Sute Institute of Political Studies, University of Tartu in Estonia, and I will be your host for today's discussion. The topic of today's discussion is the ongoing Russian invasion in Ukraine, and we have a very special guest today, His Excellency Dr. Vasil, the Ambassador of Ukraine to the Republic of Indonesia. Good afternoon, Mr. Ambassador. And we move on to the discussion session. I would give the time for our Dr. Irfan Wahyudi to give a very short opening speech because we have a lot of questions. But yes, I will give the floor to Mr. Irfan Wahyudi. Please, Mas Irfan.
Thank you, Mas Radit, and the Honorable Ambassador Vasil, Ambassador of Ukraine. Thank you for being here with us. And we are delighted to welcome you, and also would like to hear more from you about the current condition in Ukraine, and also discuss more about things that happen, and also how we Indonesians can take more lessons and also help assistance to the citizens of Ukraine. And for this occasion, I think it's a good a way for us to disseminate more information, positive information about Ukraine, and also what happened in the situation currently being the global watch. And we know in here in the faculty, we have these different departments that are also discussing with our own perspective, including the Department of International Relations that have very large attention, and then they have discussed it every week, as I noticed, and it has become a very strong point for us to know more from you. And thanks once again to be part of this discussion, and we hope for the best for the Ukrainian citizens. Thank you, and going back to you, Aditya.
Thank you, Mas Irfan, for the introduction and for opening our discussion. And before we move to ask question to His Excellency Pak Dubes Vasil, I'm going to introduce Pak Dubes. He was born in city of Dnipro in Ukraine, and he graduated from the Foreign Philology faculty at Kiev Taras Shevchenko University. And also he has a PhD in World History from Institute of Oriental Studies and from National Academy of Science of Ukraine. And he has been a diplomat for Ukraine since 2002. And since last year, July 30th, he was appointed as the Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Ukraine to the Republic of Indonesia. And he presented his letter of credence to our President, Pak Joko Widodo, on October 25th, 2021. And again, thank you so much for agreeing for this to this meeting and discussion, Mr. Ambassador. And before we move to the discussion again, can you just tell us initially what can you say about this unprovoked invasion by Russia? So before we have a lot of questions already. Many students already sent me their question as well. But just before we move to each questions, can you say anything about this unprovoked invasion, please, Mr. Ambassador?
Selamat sore. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Saya mau mengucapkan terima kasih banyak untuk atas kesempatan ini untuk pemuda-pemuda, mahasiswa-mahasiswa, saudara-saudara, dan guru-guru who I would not speak Indonesian, yang ikut acara ini. Saya berbahasa Indonesia belum lancar, masih belajar. Sebabnya itu boleh saya berbahasa Inggris?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Tentu saja, Pak.
Sorry, I'm really like, yeah, I'm like a new, like a student. And so I really appreciate everybody to be the guests of this forum, of this conference. I would not waste your time on telling what's going on in Ukraine. You can see the news, but please don't see Russian news. And I would like to invite every one of you to visit my Facebook page. My Facebook is Vasil Hamyanin, exactly like you can see on this on my icon, and Twitter, of course. It's this at, right? Then arrobas, then V Hamyanin. So please visit it. You can see a lot of real news, and you will not be misled by the Russian propaganda. So I was a student myself, and I did my PhD in the Academy of Sciences of Ukraine on world history, but mainly was related to Chinese history of the modern era, beginning of last century. And this was the very important time also for Indonesia. For my period ended like 1949, right? So for Indonesia, it was like very, very, very important and crucial period for your history. So I call upon you just with one request, just one. Please, before you perceive the news disseminated by Russian propaganda, please think twice or maybe thrice. It is very important because you are young and resourceful and you are students of the university of Mahasiswa. This is very important that you learn how to analyze and learn how to see the things are what they are, not what they look like. It's very important to understand that what happens now is Ukraine is the attempt of restoring neocolonialism, something Russia was very good at for centuries. So this was the big colonial country which tried to keep this big empire and tried to keep these the colonies of itself under pressure for centuries. And the history of Ukraine and Russian relations effectively is the history of fight of Ukrainian people against the colonialism of Russian Empire, and then of the Soviet Union, and then all of it. So this is important. And now finally, my remark is, if you want to see how Russian propaganda works, and this is the excellent machine of agitation, propaganda, and lies, built up in the early years of the Soviet Union. So I think it's like the best in the world history. Even Hitler, Nazi Germany, used it 100% in the propaganda, what they did. And now Mr. Putin uses it as well, and uses, I must admit, quite efficiently, unfortunately. But what it looks like, again, I prefer this comparison. You have the Danau, yeah, with very clean and potable water, very clean, like green or blue. It's just nice, and very deep. This is the truth. And then someone just spills few drops of minyak tanah, of oil, on the surface. So we have this very thin film of black and brown floating on surface. Now you look from outside, you see the color, which is brown or black, and you don't know what is inside. So perhaps the whole Danau is like black or water is brown. Then to know the truth, just tube, like blow on the surface, or maybe use your hand or something, just destroy this film, and you will see the truth. It is very important. It's crucial for every one of us, not only analyzing the situation in Ukraine, but for everyone to analyze and to understand everything in the world politics, in the economy, in philosophy, in everything. Maybe this is the last but one remark, and I just mentioned it. I'm very proud I can be the guest of, well, however virtual, but the guest of Surabaya, the place that I really was so glorious. And the glory of Surabaya, I think, was one of the most crucial moments for the fight for independence. And I repeat it again. Every morning I do something. I have a little ceremony for the last 2 weeks. Every morning I have my cup of coffee, reading news, and after this I listen to the Surabaya speech of Bung Tomo. And if you listen it once again or look at the text, you all understand that I want you to understand. You change the names of the city, Surabaya, into Kiev. You change the names of provinces, Pemuda, Indonesia, gathered from, into Ukrainian cities. You'll have the exact picture of what is going on in Ukraine. Thank you so much. I'm waiting for your questions because I know there are many.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador. And for all the other participants, we are also live in YouTube. So if you cannot join us via Zoom, you can always see our meetings and our discussion on YouTube. And also, if you have any questions, feel free to chat on the Q&A channel, and then we will ask the question to His Excellency. But I already have several questions. I gathered since several days, and also some of the students and friends also sent to me several questions that I've been dealing with since the beginning of the war, Mr. Ambassador. And the first one that I think is very important, and it is being asked in many of the webinar, is what is the Ukrainian positions on negotiations? So many IR scholars in Indonesia, at least, argued that okay, this is Ukraine can accept neutrality, and then Russia will back down. Would you accept that after all what happened, after being bombed and thousands of people killed and millions left Ukraine? Can you accept any kind of like settlement, and what would you accept for such settlement? Thank you, Mr. Ambassador.
I'll be brief because we have limited time. So
yes,
trust me, Ukrainian people has unanimously declared they have enough blood to make this white flag proposed by Russian army, Merah Putih. In Ukraine, we have this flag, Merah Hitam, like a flag of Ukrainian Liberation Army. So we have enough blood to make it red. When you start negotiations, you have to understand the conditions you propose to the opponent are just and fair. And if you start negotiations, you never kill the civilians at the same time. So when Russia started these negotiations, at the eve of the negotiations, it was massive bombardment of Kharkiv, Mariupol, and other cities. The cruelty with how they did it is just astonishing. It's, I mean, the war crimes Russian army has already committed in Ukraine. The scale of war crimes, I think, can be compared with the Second World War, at least the beginning. So the scale of ruination of Ukrainian cities. You don't negotiate when you don't stop killing people and firing. You know. So as for the conditions, I mean, the very direct characteristic feature of Russian, well, you can call it whatever, dictatorship, fascism, I would rather prefer neocolonialism, is lies. So they are cheating on that, and they intentionally give us the conditions we never would be able to satisfy, because we are not trading by our land, we are not trading by our people. What would Indonesian people think if we let the Crimea, the cradle of Ukrainian Islam, the home for 2 million or 1 million plus Ukrainian Muslims who now fled to Ukrainian territory and cannot go home? What would you think if we agreed to give it back to Russia? I mean, it will be humiliation towards Muslim brothers and sisters. In Crimea, we have like more than 1,000 years of Islamic history. We have hundreds, not hundreds maybe, but like at least 100 plus of masjid, madrasa. We have the cemeteries of Muslim people there. It's like full of history, full of glory. And now they're already deprived for their land, for their home, for the history once again during last 100 years. So I think we will never betray our brothers and sisters in Crimea, whoever they are, Muslims or Christians. We will never trade by our lands. And what is really bothers me that after Russian occupation of Crimea, the rights of Crimean Tatars or Muslims, especially of Muslims, have been violating severely. For example, Majlis Tatar Crimea was banned and was declared like terrorist organization. Can you imagine this? And now all the activists are persecuted, are arrested and put into jail, and all the rest of it. So I don't even dare to think that we will accept this trade, this humiliating trade by land. I'm not talking about the Donbass already, because it's again, it's another story, but it's people who suffered last 8 years under this rule of Russian colonialists. It's like it makes me furious. It makes me furious. It makes the whole nation of Ukraine furious.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for that. And also, just building on that subject, there is this several reports about the humanitarian corridors and ceasefire, especially around Mariupol. And then it is being violated several times. Can you comment on this, on the situations? Because I've heard that people in Mariupol at the moment, they don't have food, they don't have water, they don't have electricity, no heat, and this is still in the winter. I mean, it's very cold in Estonia, so I can imagine what's the weather like in Ukraine at the moment. So
0 on the ground, nearly there.
Yes.
Yeah, I can comment on this. This will be a very brief comment. What they do now is the crimes against humanity. What they do now is the humanitarian catastrophe, because people, yes, they don't have medication, they don't have a place to stay, to live, they don't have shelter. They don't have food, they don't have clothes enough to survive. So as for the corridor, first time Russian army demonstrated the willingness to open the humanitarian corridor, like what we call it green corridor, right? Was back in 2014, when the group of Ukrainian militaries and some civilians were surrounded near Ilovaisk in Donbass, in eastern Ukraine. And then there was negotiations, and the armies agreed that we will give the corridor for Ukrainian troops to retreat if they agree to, be armless, right? No arms in hand. And the people start leaving this place surrounded by Russians, and then they open fire. And in this massacre, many thousands of Ukrainian soldiers, young guys, young people just died within few minutes, within hours. So this is how can we trust Russian negotiators? Then what happens now with the green corridors? For example, in Mariupol, they agreed 2 corridors, one towards Russia, one towards Ukraine. Now the one towards Russia, not a single citizen of Ukraine would love to go, because after what they did to Mariupol. However, Mariupol is absolutely 100% Russian-speaking city. 100%. And the corridor towards Ukraine, you know what Russians do? They put mines under the ground, mines, anti-infantry mines. So if people start going, they will just die. This is what the humanitarian corridors means in Russian interpretation.
Okay, thank you so much.
I just said one thing. We are ready to negotiate, but you don't kill and negotiate at the same time.
Yes, I think that's a very important point. So usually a negotiation starts after the ceasefire, and then everyone got back to their own barracks. So that's another point. Yeah, so there are a lot of questions, especially regarding this, not about the situation, but about the current narrative in Indonesia. I'm sure you've read, and you also attended the webinar when you actually have to debate several scholars. So I'm not going to ask again about what happened there, but there is a question now from the chat. There is a question from let me just write his name, Humam Fidi. He thinks that the dominant understanding, the more pro-Russian understanding in Indonesia is due to the incomplete knowledge of Indonesians regarding the history of Ukraine.
Yes.
So that's why he thinks that's why the voice of Ukraine is somehow drowned by this kind of pro-Russians. narrative. So he would like to ask you, what books or perhaps papers do you recommend of, so that Indonesian readers, Indonesian students can improve their understanding about Ukraine? And also he asked about Taras Shevchenko. He said that today is his birthday. I have no idea about that. So
Sure.
yeah, he asked about that. And could you also recommend which person or whom shall we read to understand Ukraine national history and Ukraine identity? If you can comment on that.
Yes. Right. First one remark. As I mentioned, the Russian propaganda has been built up through 100 years, and it was massive influx of money, of financing into this. And recent 30 years, or maybe 20 years, it was very aggressive, and there were billions of dollars in this machine. It was like financed like better than the space programs by the United States. So of course, sure, the narratives spread widely by the Russian propaganda are massive, and they look like the truth. And sure, Ukraine didn't have money, and maybe we are guilty. We didn't pay much attention to that in peaceful times, so we didn't do much. So yes, we were maybe well, I hope temporarily we are losing this informational war with Russia, but I think that truth is always clean and truth will always win. So as for the Ukrainian history and everything, I repeat, try to go to my page and on Facebook on this. Like I will make the list of the literature. Maybe it is important. You know what? It is important to have the this literature in English available here, right? Because we have plenty of books and plenty of everything in Ukrainian, but not in English. Like I tried to find the history of Indonesia in whatever language I can understand, and then it was difficult, you know. So I will recommend the books, and it is important not to read the books now written back by the Soviet historians and the books written by Russian historians, which exactly the reflection of the books that are written by Soviet times, in Soviet times. So the narrative is very simple. We are one nation, we are brothers, we have always been together, living happy ever after, that sort of things. And the truth is that we have been fighting for 300 years. Every period we have the possibility and opportunity to fight, we did. And in this fight, we lost like millions, and unfortunately, but finally, so this is the narrative. About Taras Shevchenko, well, many people in Ukraine treat him as a prophet. Yeah, like, and of course, like not like the religious prophets, but this was the man who, like all his life, suffered from the oppression, because however he studied in St. Petersburg, and he was like in St. Petersburg he was like Russian speaking, but in Ukraine he wrote the very important books, and all he wrote in his books predominantly poems, but it's poetry. He was one of the creators of the modern Ukrainian language, and his books were like reflecting till now, till these days, the spirit of Ukrainian people. Never surrender, never trade by your land, never respect the humiliator, never respect those who try to humiliate you, and never lie. So it's like, yeah, it's like one of your governors say, no corruption, no lies. So this is exactly something that, and he was a great man. If you have the translations of his poems into something, well, in English it's obviously a lot. There are a lot of history in these books, true history, because about the revolts against the colonialism, revolts against Russian Empire, etc. How it happened, and whom did we confront? So yes, Taras Shevchenko is a great man. However, not the single one. So there were many, and there are many still in Ukraine. So I actually plan to visit universities, many universities in Indonesia, and I promise you, after the war, the first one will be yours. So I'll bring some books if I have deliveries, because we are cut off the supplies now. So, but I will. I have just one book left, History of Ukraine in English. So I'll leave it for you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador. We would love to have you in our department and also in our faculty. But just building on that, there is another question from Azam, especially regarding this kind of pro-Putin, not only pro-Russian, but this kind of a preference towards what I wrote in my articles, this preference towards strong leaders. So that Putin is always seen as this idealistic leaders by, not by many probably, but many, at least online Indonesians. Yeah. So can you actually tell us how you are going to respond to this narrative in Indonesia right now? So did you do anything extraordinary, for example, just because the narrative is actually very pro-Russian, very pro-Putin? Putting Ukraine is very, I have to say that President Zelensky has been portrayed as this kind of comedian, caricaturist. Again, it's not very respectful, but what can you do about that, or what have you done about to respond to that situation?
Right, we live in democratic countries, so whatever pictures, caricatures, and having fun worldwide on whoever, it's like not prohibited, right? Since it's not like insulted. I would say this: I would not repeat my narrative about the propaganda, right? But it's important for everyone to understand that it is true that maybe the single truth in Russian propaganda is that Putin is widely supported by Russians. Now, the reason for that is that really he delivers the information he wants to the Russian TV viewers and those people who don't want to think and who don't want to tube on the surface of the lake. So, but if you think about the other history example, Hitler, before the Second World War, was he popular among the Germans? Was he popular among the Germans while shouting that Germany is the highest nation and the best nation and deserving the leadership in the world and all the rest? I just no one, slaves and all this stuff. Was he supported by Germans? There were millions of Germans supporting him. So this is very and only in the democratic countries we have this situation when the half people support, half not, and then some whoever wins, then whoever goes down, etc. Zelensky was supported by the 70% of the population just because he was an actor, he was a comedian, right? Before this, he didn't have this bad background of corruption, of sins, of whatever, like the schemes somewhere in the politics. He was clean politically. So many people believed in him that he can change the country. And the other example, people support the leader simultaneously, is in wartime. That's what happened in Ukraine. Before the war, half of population criticized him, half made fun and all sort of this. But I see one very good phrase that Zelensky is the comedian who became the leader in the age when majority of the leaders of the world became clowns. So it is true. And what I do against this, you see, we do a lot now. I hardly sleep, I hardly eat. I have my breakfast at midnight, because I don't have time in daytime. So breakfast, not talking about lunch and dinner. So we do a lot. We have a team now. The people who before this, they were indifferent. They didn't care, right? But now they are not indifferent. They came and say, Ukrainians and Indonesia, we would like to help. So now we're building up this work, and I think you will see the results. You'll see the results.
Yes, thank you so much. And also there is one again related to that question. I think this is from my friends here in Estonia. Or there is this question not regarding Indonesia, but in more general countermeasures to Russian propaganda, especially among the Russian-speaking Ukrainians, so Russian-speaking population in Ukraine, and how effective were they before the escalation of this war? If you can give a short.
I can briefly comment on this.
Yeah.
You see, I now receive dozens of small videos made by Indonesian people in Ukraine, Indonesian citizens, Indonesian-speaking Ukrainians who learn Bahasa and who visited Indonesia many times, and by Ukrainian Muslims who, however, don't speak Bahasa, but they speak Arabic, and they so they like in very small videos, they explain what happens and what they think. And I think this is very reliable sources of information for Indonesian people, because they would rather trust a brother Muslim than me. Okay, they would rather trust just a common people than the ambassador who maybe is telling lies or something. So I collect this a lot, and we disseminate them too for Indonesian people to understand. Same story about if I speak like English or Ukrainian, and my speech is directed towards Russian people in Russia, they'll say, this is Nazi, what he's talking about. But President Zelensky, I repeat, he is Russian speaking originally. So in his speeches he delivers every day, two times a day at least, for the people, he always gives a couple of minutes speaking Russian and addressing the Russian people, because the narration in Russia is that in Ukrainian, Russian speaking population is oppressed, is being prosecuted, or whatever. And you just in whatever questions, it was like the battalion Azov are neo-fascists. I'm reporting to you, Azov is Mariupol, Berdyansk, and the Bank of Azov Sea. This is 101% Russian-speaking population, which never ever desired, to speak Ukrainian or something. They were just living, working, and everything was fine. So to call these people fascists, it's like humiliate yourself. It's like, oh my God. It's these are people who fight for my country, and I know them because they started in 2014. If they didn't appear in those times, you know what? A half of volunteer battalions fighting since 2014, a half of them are from the eastern part of Ukraine. Kharkiv, Donetsk, Luhansk, Sumy, Mariupol, Zaporizhia, from Dnipro, of course. So the names of there was Donbass, Dnipro, Azov, etc. You see, because these people were furious about the attack, about the treachery of the Russian Federation towards the nation we thought were like brothers, not like brothers, but at least like speaking one language and having some history. And more, what's important, many relatives of us live in Russia now, mine inclusive. And why it is so hugely supported? Can you understand what happens now in Ukraine, right? You can see videos, everything. Yeah. Can you imagine that Russian people cannot see this in Russia? Because TikTok, Facebook, now I think YouTube and blah, 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 media now are illegal. They were just stopped. So people can only watch, like in North Korea, only 1, 2, 3 channels of Russian propaganda. Only this. So where do they get information from? You have to work hard on how to get the true information. And then I have many examples of my friends whose mother lives in Russia. Because they said, you're lying to me, daughter. What are you talking about? What war? They told it's military operation. So mother, I'm being bombed. I spent half of my day in shelter with your granddaughter. You don't believe your daughter. I'm even have Russian passport. So you are a liar. And then, that's what happened in Russia. So, unfortunately.
Yes, that is. Yeah, there are a lot of stories now that the Russians, in Russia, I couldn't understand what happened because they don't know what happened. And
yes, exactly.
Because of the media, even the independent media has been, closed. Echo Moskvia, and even
Dozhd, Hujan.
Yes. Yes, that's what happened. So I think that's very important.
They use two tools simultaneously. First is propaganda. Second is police. Because when people go to the streets, can you believe in Russia, they passed a law 3 days before that the slogan, "No war," became illegal. You cannot go to the street with the slogan, "No war," without mentioning Ukraine or something. Can you believe this?
Yes.
I do.
I think that's very important for our students, Indonesian students, to understand what happened.
Yes.
So, if before we move to the questions about EU and then the consequences of this war, I would just like to ask one more thing about again the Indonesian context. You met Gus Yahya Stakuf, I think, several days ago, and also the ambassador, the Russian ambassador, also came afterwards, and then they posted. Well, I think he posted this two pictures of you and then Ambassador Ludmila there.
Yeah.
Can you just briefly comment on this? Well, what is the actual maybe the reasons, or was it your initiative, or was it actually the Nahdlatul Ulama that wants to bridge this this conflict or something like that?
My comment again will be very, very brief. I think that what Indonesian Muslim organizations do, a part of all the others, about the, like Islamic studies, about the education, blah, 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 what they do, they are trying to make huge contribution into peace and security of the world. And of course, I understand they are very much worrying about the destiny of the Muslim population in Ukraine and in Russia, because in Russia, it's a very specific picture about the Muslim population. As you remember, during 2 Chechen wars, it was war against the Muslim population of Russia. So how many people they killed and how many the villages and the towns they destroyed, it's a tragedy. It's a genocide, I think. So, of course, Ulama Indonesia have very big concerns about the destiny of the Muslim population of that region, of the brothers and sisters. For this, they have to understand what's going on. So, of course, they cannot just, it's absolutely normal when you seeking the balance in terms of understanding, right? So you listen to Russia, Ukraine, maybe you listen then to, I don't know, to Saudi Arabia experts, or maybe to Turkish, or maybe to Azerbaijan or someone else people who live there and know the picture. So you'll have the 3D or even 4D picture. So now then you can make the assumptions. And then in this situation, you can make statements, and you can even find the ways to persuade the aggressor to stop somehow. There are ways, I'm sure about this. There are, like if you talk with the people in terms of, I don't know, religion, they may not perceive you, but then you talk in other terms, somehow, I don't know. There are ways you can persuade the people to stop killing people. That's my perception. It's very important to know the full picture. And my friends, Muslim friends, the leaders of Ukrainian Muslims, Mufti of Crimea and Mufti of Ukraine, Sheikh Ismailov and Sheikh Haider Rustemov, they write me every day nearly, and they say that if you meet the people from Majlis Ulama Indonesia, Muhammadiyah, Nahdlatul Ulama, please convey them our great gratitude for the prayers, because we can feel them. And they say our weapons is prayers. But if we have to defend our land, we pray and we fight. This is what happens. So I'm fine with this. Why not? She's the ambassador of Russian Federation. Okay, why not? We have to meet people and talk, because like diplomacy dies last. Yeah, you have to talk.
Thank you so much for that. And now, in the last maybe 15 to 20 minutes, we can actually talk about this the relations of Ukraine with the other countries. So there are a lot of questions about the EU. I know that President Zelensky already submitted the membership applications, and also from Georgia and Moldova also submitted the applications. Yes. And then there is this question, I think, from several students, several members of the audience, about how you see the EU's role in this crisis, and also it regards to the sanction that the EU and the West, or not only the West, but many other countries as well, impose on Russia, do you think it's sufficient? Do you think it will stop the soldiers or Putin from pushing into Kyiv and into the other parts of Ukraine?
I think that after the experience of the Second World War, the First World War and the Second World War, after this, European countries understood one important thing. If you don't use the principle of Bhinneka Tungalika, you might suffer, you might even disappear from the map. Because what Hitler did to Europe is exactly what Putin is trying to do with the former Soviet countries, including Ukraine first in rank. So it's very important to understand that European Union was something that was established sort of like a balance to a big and aggressive power in the East. NATO was established exactly for this very reason, because if Hitler didn't attack first Soviet Union, there was a possibility that Stalin would attack Hitler a little bit later. So it was dangerous, it was aggressive, it was powerful. That's why this appears. And I don't, it's nothing to discuss here. I mean, we choose the way we develop. We choose the way. Ukraine is not a member of NATO now, not a member of European Union. We don't have nuclear weapons. We are 3 times smaller than 3.5 times smaller than Russia in terms of population, in terms of territory and the resources. We are times and times smaller. What threat can we impose towards Russia? What sort of, why are they say that they are afraid of Ukraine being the member of something? And NATO is defensive organization, not attacking. And this is in terms of it's ridiculous if you talk about this. What about the crisis and the role of European Union and other countries in the West and in the East in this crisis? This is simple. Try to read the history of Indonesia from 1945 to 1949, at least this period. You were fighting alone. Was it easy? No. But if the world, if in this situation, the world stood up and say, no, you just stop, guys, you stop killing people, just stop, seize this colony from existence, let the people be free and independent. This war would have ended within months and easily. You'll become the happy people, a happy equal member of the United Nations much earlier. So if you look at what happens now in Ukraine, I'm telling you what, diplomacy and negotiations are very important, but perhaps in the situation Ukraine experiences now, we wouldn't have time for that, for this, because negotiations don't last minutes. They last maybe weeks, months, years, and perhaps when the negotiations are in the middle, there is no Ukraine to discuss, you see? That's why the only way to stop the mad dictator, I'm not afraid of this word, he's a mad dictator, guy with paranoia, and there are too many proofs for that. If we don't let him stop, he would not just stop. If he ran out of missiles and tanks and ammunition, he will just stop fighting automatically. That's what the sanctions was about. It's not about humiliation of Russia. It's about stopping, bombing, shelling, killing. This is one and only reason for this. Simple. And how mad the Putin is. Imagine when our soldiers captured 2 convoy in Ukraine and discovered some warehouses. They discovered 2 things. First, one convoy was full of police ammunition and equipment. Police with shields, with sticks where they hit people, with police helmets. It means, and the platoon of police. Now on my Facebook, with translation into Indonesian from news, the guys are telling, we were really told that Ukraine is now surrendering and you just go to keep the order, all this stuff. And the second warehouse is hundreds sets of the uniform, brand new uniform, used for parades of victory. This man didn't expect Ukraine would ever resist. Is he not mad?
Yes, that's another topic that I've been discussed a lot. That maybe he expected that Ukraine will fall on 2-3 days, and there was already a leak victory speech, I think, in Ria Novosti several weeks, even like 2 days after the start. So that's another thing. And yes, so there are also some question where do you think after this war, Ukrainians will feel more strongly a pro-European? Because, you know, before maybe you have 40%, 30%, or maybe even more that wants to go to be more closer to Russia. But now, after this attack, do you think most of them, or not, if not all of them, wants to join Europe or even more closer to NATO and EU?
Again, very briefly, Putin, as someone mentioned, made possible the dream of Ukrainians through generations. He made a reality something that we've been trying to do and failed time and times again through centuries. It's Ukraina Bersatu. Now we don't feel like we have different religions and languages and political biases, whatever. Muslims are covering Christians with their bodies when fight. Christians are covering atheists, and like they sleep together, like in this pit, while fighting. Political opponents so fiercely fighting in the parliament, now again protecting each other and telling exactly the same things, like directed towards Russian aggressor. Because what happens now is crimes against humanity. Never we are going to forget or forgive it. So yes, he achieved the goal of Ukrainians. We are now united, and you were absolutely right. Like in the like 20 years ago, it was like 50-50. They want to go to west, they want to go east, and someone want to remain neutral. After 2014, after Crimea, after Donbass, this balance changed into like 60-30 plus 10 neutral or something like this. But now it's like, I would say it's like 100, maybe 90, but nobody is indifferent. There's no people who don't care. Yes, things change dramatically. And if Putin's goal was to split Ukraine into two, he failed.
Yes, that's I think that's very. You can see, at least from my friends here, now there is one voice, and even President Zelensky's approval rating or something. I think that now is 90-something%. So that's something that I was yes. And just one more question is about the possible future.
Yeah.
There was a lot of discussions, even I think even among the US and other Western countries, just in case, if I think this is one question that I've submitted to you. If Kyiv falls, and then what will happen? And then also there is this discussion about the former president Viktor Yanukovych being in Minsk, and then saying, I think his statement was published by the Russian media several days ago, saying that okay, Ukraine should stop fighting. With what you have said before, will the people in Ukraine accept that kind of imposed government from Russia?
If we understanding that according to the widespread knowledge, Ukraine now is opposing the second strongest army in the world, right? So now 2 weeks passed, and not a single big city surrendered, just surrounded, and not a single city like say we are ready to surrender, just do something. No, Kyiv is very well prepared for the defense, and this is statistics, right? We have 2 weeks of war instead of 3 days as they planned. And we have huge resistance of the people, and they forgot about something. Ukrainians are inseparable from the land. If this land doesn't belong to them, they will fight for it. And they also forgot about the glorious traditions of guerrilla wars in Ukrainian land. We were one of the best guerrillas, maybe after Indonesians or Vietnamese, when they did absolutely amazing things. And how do you imagine like keeping the cities in the power, keeping the power on this land, when you have 100% resistance from the 40 millions of the population, okay, 30 millions of population, excluded children or something. How can you imagine this? What army do you need to control the occupied territories of this scale and control the 30 millions of population like being your slaves? Not possible. So there is a possibility always that the capital city will fall. Always, but don't forget about guerrilla wars. They will kill, they will fight from every window, from under every tree, from everywhere. And no single soldier of Russian Federation will feel safe, never, unless he goes back or he dies. So to make Ukraine surrender in this situation we have now, you have to kill all 40 millions of Ukrainians. This is the answer.
Yes, that's the very thing that I think I saw from my friends here, from my friends online, that they are ready to defend Ukraine. They're ready to go back to Ukraine to defend their land, and that is very. On one hand, it's very.
By the way,
yes.
For those who understand who is Johar Dudayev, Johar Dudayev was the first president of Ichkeria, then became Chechnya. So remember this name, Johar Dudayev. Try to find his interview back in 1995. He told, within 3 minutes, he told that it would be big war between Ukraine and Russia. And then he told something about Ukrainians. You find and read. Johar Dudayev, 1995, nearly 30 years ago.
Yes, that's one thing that we now have to look for, and then just watch the interviews. And then for the final round, maybe 5 minutes.
10 minutes, okay.
Yes, I could just, can we just go back to, again, because you are here in Indonesia, you are the ambassador of Ukraine to Indonesia. One thing that, again, going back to this narrative or this, the people in Indonesia currently supporting Russia, or many online, do you think the media, the mainstream media in Indonesia, has a role in countering this propaganda from Russia? Or do you think it's up to students, up to our again this kind of educated people to try to engage with this again with this narrative? Do you think the media, or is it the people that have to try to?
I've been communicating to media people since I became a diplomat, even before, more than 20 years. And these are people whom I love dearly. And I think that media is like the influence of media maybe is second to the religion. And in some countries is much bigger than the religion. Like in Christian countries, it's like, So this is absolutely true. And I admire my media friends in Indonesia. So they, first of all, for the willingness to understand the essence, to analyze, and then to see what happens, and then the willingness to help and to deliver the true information about this. Now you see in the media of Indonesia, you see various pro-Russian, and then I would call it not pro-Ukrainian, but pro-Russian and true, right? There are two pieces of news. And I found out that more and more news are true, and some of them, if they appear new stories about Ukraine whatsoever, they are very provocative and without any proofs. So we can see the fake immediately. So I think that media is the stronghold of democracy in this country, at least, and as well as parliament, so surely. But media is something that in every country, in every democratic country, there are two main forces. As in Ukraine, it has always been media and Bermuda, young people. There is a part of people who don't like to read. They don't like TikTok, or they don't like Facebook. They don't read this. They maybe Instagram, TikTok, etc. This is very easy to be manipulated because the fakes are massive there. Like they create something funny about my president. They create something like humiliating about my country, something. But I still believe that people would divide the Minyak Tanakh from the Air. They will see the truth finally. So I'm grateful. I'm giving a deep bow to and deep respect, high respect to media people of Indonesia. You are great. You are fighters. You are real pahlawan, I would say. Thank you.
Yes, so just one probably small comment, that one question. Also, my last question actually from my list. Do you have any hope, especially to young people in Indonesia or students listening to this, watching this discussion? Do you have any message for the young Indonesians about this war, about Ukraine, and about maybe helping us to end this war, or to support Ukrainians in this time?
It's very simple principles I learned when I was doing my thesis in PhD history. Very simple. First, don't follow the emotions because emotions might be very much misleading. I can now cry and show you the something, I don't know, wounds on my body, okay, and it's emotions. It's pathetic. Don't follow the emotions because they can be lies. Follow your brains. In this situation, in some situations, yes, you follow your heart. When you know, talking about, I would not stop on this, but follow your brains. Try to see the situation like from all the ways, all the sides. Try to imagine it 3D, right? And try to analyze, try to understand, right? And the second principle is you have to go to remind me. This was the sorry. This is very something I really admire, and I'll say that it calls Amar Maruf Nahi Munkar, the principle that, I mean, people should know what is good and people should not do what is evil. This is very important, because even if you analyze and you are persuaded that, okay, we are brothers and all this stuff with Russian people, okay, they have real concerns about NATO, okay, NATO is bad, everybody is bad except Russia. You read all this and then you finally look at the situation. Nothing can justify killings of people. Nothing can justify the war crimes, especially if you talk about army killing civilians. Nothing. So everybody else goes aside. This is what I call upon my friends, younger friends, and think, always think. And finally, you see this principle. Don't do evil and don't trust evil.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador.
Maybe the last question, if you want.
No, that was my last question, and I just want to quote, I think this one article from Adam Tooze, saying that war should not be normalized as a logical and obvious reaction to any circumstances, and war should be recognized as radical and perilous act, and any thinkers and politicians too careless or too shallow to face that stark reality should be judged accordingly. So I would say that anything you can believe whatever you want to believe. You can also analyze the situation and then say, okay, NATO, like you said, NATO is responsible. But again, this is not a reason to justify any kind of invasion, any kind of war, any kind of killing civilians. I think that's the most important thing that we have to highlight here. Again,
maybe the last.
Yes. Yes. If you have any last comment or any last.
I try to. There is something like a quotation from one of the great not humanitarians. It's one of humanists. One of the greatest humanists of the 20th century, Bruno Jasenski, Polish guy, Polish poet and painter, who was killed by the Stalin's was KGB sort of in 1938 when there were repressions, and he left us many pictures, but he left us very important phrase, which I repeat and repeat again. I learn it by heart. Don't be afraid of your enemies. They can only kill you. Don't be afraid of your friends. They can only betray you. Be afraid of those who do not care. Be afraid of indifferent. Because it is under silent support of indifferent people, murders and betrayals take place in this world. Don't be indifferent.
Thank you so much. With that excellent remarks, I think we can conclude this discussion. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. And I hope, or we hope, that you can come back anytime soon. And
Tentu saja.
Tentu saja. And we would love to have you back in our, of course, when the time is more normal.
Sure.
You can visit us in Surabaya, and well, not in Tartu where I'm speaking from right now, but in Surabaya, and meet our students and lecturers as well. Once again, thank you so much.
Sudah perang selesai.
Yes, mudah-mudahan segera selesai, Pak.
Mudah-mudahan. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pak Dubes, and thank you for everyone that attended this discussion. We'll see you again in the next future, and hope that this war will end soon. And my deepest regards to all the members of the embassy in Ukraine, and also to the Ukrainians in Ukraine. So thank you so much.
Merdeka atau mati.